This is an example of how to use variables in SystmOne protocols. It's a BMI calculator. SystmOne, of course, has its own BMI calculator that could be called from a protocol, so I wouldn't necessarily use this in real life. To calculate BMI, you need to have height and weight. These yellow boxes ensure that the height and weight are actually in the patient record. For the purposes of this protocol, I'm going to use 3 variables. I've got a more streamlined version I can show you later, but as this one is all about using variables, then that's why I've done it this way. And variables have to be set up before you can use them. It's called declaring the variables. In programming generally, it's good practice to do that sort of work at the start of any procedure. So you'll see here I've got them as part of the process flow at the start of the protocol. In fact, as long as they're in there before they're needed to be used, you can declare them at any point that you like. The order in which they're declared isn't necessarily important. I've got one for weight, and then one for height, and then one for the calculation, just because that's the way that I wanted to do it. I've made this a darker blue, so wherever I've used the calculation, you can see they stand out a little bit. This is how to declare a variable. I've got declare variable on the buttons. Drop it, and give it a name. Make it short but meaningful, and SystmOne will put the @ symbol at the start of it automatically. So that's the name. It needs a start value. I've got a start value of 0 for mine. It can be whatever you like, but 0 tends to work well most of the time. Now when I press OK, that's it ready to be used as part of the protocol. There are a number of options for doing things with the variables. Change variable is really useful, and here's one that's already set up. In this case, I've made the variable for the height the same as the height value that's actually in the patient record. Here's how to do it. To change variable, drop the box. That's the variable I want to work with. Notice the @ symbol. I want to base it upon a reading. You see there are other options here. And the reading I want to do is height. So I'm going to tell it that. There's height, that's gone in now. I could do other things to that, but I'm happy with it just as it is, so I'm going to blank that out. Press OK, and then that's in and ready to be used. I did the same for weight, so now I've got height and weight as variables. I can start thinking about my calculation. More than one way to approach it, but bearing in mind that the calculation is the weight divided by the height squared, what I've done first of all is get the height squared. So my variable for the calculation is the PAT BMI, so it's change variable again. That's the variable I want to use, and I'm going to base it upon the height times height. There you go. So now I've got the height squared, I need to divide the weight by the height squared. So I can reuse that variable again, so it's change variable again with the same variable. So that's the weight divided by, and I can actually use the squared values because I've still got this to work with. And that's it, that's done. Now that I've got the BMI calculated, there's various things I can do with it. For instance, I might want different things to happen depending on what the value is, and that is the test variable function. So you see here's an example. I'm testing to see if the value is greater than 25 or equal to less than 25. So I'll do test variable, drop the box, it's the back BMI, and I want to match to greater than 25, and that's the box sorted out for that. So having got the test in place, what I can do is do one particular thing if the value is greater than 25, or something different if the value is 25 or less. And I've just put some information boxes on. So within the information box, what I can do is put in whatever text I want, and somewhere in there include @ and the variable name. I've highlighted this just to make it stand out, but when that box pops up when I run the protocol, it will basically say the patient's BMI is 24, whatever it might be. So finally, in this particular example, what I want to do is to save this BMI as a read-coded numeric into the patient record, and that's save variable. There's one I've already done. So save variable, drop the box. That's the variable I want to use. The numeric value it relates to is this one. Press the OK, and you can see then that's the value going in. Obviously that doesn't have to be the end of the protocol, but in this particular example it is. So this is the second example, the more streamlined version of the first one, and you can see in this case I've only used one variable, which is the BMI. Yellow boxes again are just to make sure they've got height and weight readings in the record to play with. And then down here is our first calculation, and just like before I want the height times the height, but instead of using variables for it, I've actually picked the value straight out of the patient record. I've done that again with change variable. So there's my variable, but I'm going to take the reading of height and multiply that by the reading of height, and that's the first part of the calculation done. So the second part of the calculation is exactly the same idea as before. I'm going to take the weight and I'm going to divide it by the height squared. So here we go, it's the same again, but again this time I'm using the actual reading from the record. There's the weight reading. I want to divide that by the original height times height, par that one. There we go with that. The rest of the protocol is the same as what I've already shown you, so I won't go through that again now.